I don't claim to speak for all United fans, but I'm sure you guys all agree with me. Good riddance. I am so happy to see the back of the 24-25 season for Manchester United. 42 points, 15th place in the Premier League. And Ruben Amorim gave a speech after the final game against Aston Villa at Old Trafford saying that good times, better times are on the horizon. We have so much to talk about just in terms of the Villa game and the season overall. So make sure you hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. It's going to be a busy summer for Manchester United in the transfer window, hopefully for incomings and outgoings, and maybe, just maybe, next season will be better. So let me know your thoughts down below. How you lot feeling with the end of the season finally here? And we got so much to talk about, so let's get straight into it. So let's start with probably the elephant in the room, guys, and that is Manchester United finishing 15th place in the Premier League. Eventually, finally, it only took the last day of the season for Manchester United to score 2 goals at home and to get a clean sheet in a fixture that really meant absolutely nothing. But I feel like players had so much to prove. Let me actually start by saying that this was an abysmal season for Manchester United. I think every player, manager, everyone should hang their heads in shame. INEOS, Glazers, the ownership, the people that sit in the boardroom and make the decisions. Everybody should hang their heads in shame for this Premier League campaign that Manchester United have. I feel like if we had gone back to the beginning of the season and everybody's predictions, the optimism around the fan base coming into the season, I definitely did not anticipate that this is how the season would have turned out to be. Maybe we could have spoken about, Man United not contending for the title, but I don't think anyone had Manchester United spending majority of the season in the bottom half of the table, and on the final day managed to find themselves in 15th place. I mean, Spurs and Wolves don't really care. I don't think Spurs care about their finish due to beating us in the Europa League final and finding themselves in the Champions League next season. But this Premier League season for me can never happen again. It can never happen again. And if it does, and it continues to be a disaster of a campaign for Manchester United in Premier League seasons to come, then Manchester United as we know it does not exist anymore. I feel like a lot of us fans who grew up as teenagers, or even if you were in your late 20s, 30s, watching Manchester United's glory days under Sir Alex Ferguson, would never have anticipated for an entirety of a decade that Manchester United would be in this situation. I mean, this is probably the worst of it all, but we've seen bad days at Manchester United in this decade, but this is definitely, for me, it's the icing easily, without a doubt, on the cake. I am so happy to see the back of this season. It's been a long campaign, especially when Ruben Amorim came in. I don't think anyone anticipated that the season would turn out like this. I mean, it says a lot when Manchester United's game against Aston Villa, nothing on the line, that Manchester United batter them, maybe not on the score sheet, and that probably just shows you what Manchester United's biggest problems is. It's not really creating the chances, it's really more so putting them away. Now, if we actually start with, for me, the biggest kind of conversation that Manchester United need to look at in the summer transfer window is this exactly here. Manchester United's highest goal scorer in the Premier League campaign is Bruno Fernandes, followed by Ahmad, Garnacho, Marcus Rashford, who hasn't played for Manchester United in over 6 months, still finds himself in the top 5 goal scorers for Manchester United in the Premier League this season. And then Hojlunds and Xerxes, our 2 strikers combined, have 7 goals. No Manchester United player in the season has hit double digits in the league, and I think that says a lot in terms of what Manchester United's problems are this season. And again, it's just Manchester United's ability to put the ball into the back of the net. You've got Rasmus Hojlund, who has played pretty much majority, or started majority, of the games for Manchester United up front. He started 23 out of the 32 games that he played for Manchester United in the league this season. And the fact that he has 4 goals, Joshua Zirkzee only having 3 goals as well in his debut year. I'm going to spot Rasmus Hojlund and the striker situation for Manchester United later on into this video. But let's start with the biggest one. I think the biggest conversation that we need to have is about Ruben Amorim. I feel like after the Europa League loss, a lot of fans started to lose their confidence and their faith in Ruben Amorim. I think the selection in the Europa League final, from Ruben Amorim was questionable. The speech that he gave today after the 2-0 victory against Aston Villa was, I think, it was a cry for help. It was to rally the fan base, apologizing to the fans, and rightfully so, but also apologizing to the players. That he said that, sometimes I can be harsh on you guys throughout the season, and I apologize, and we can do this together next season. I promise that we will not have a season like this again as long as we are together. I think it's words. and in life, not just in football, but in life, words mean nothing when there's no actions behind it. Now, Ruben Amorim can only really, put the actions behind those words if he is substantially backed in the window this summer. And when I say backed, I don't mean Man United have to spend 400 million in the transfer window, but the player profiles and the type of players that Manchester United need, that Ruben Amorim needs, need to be at Old Trafford next season. I'm talking about physical players, because Manchester United have been bullied consistently in the Premier League when it comes to physicality. I'm talking about confidence players, players that are confident in their ability and don't let the lights and the moment and the stadium atmosphere get to them where they start to crumble. Today in particular against Aston Villa, because there's nothing on the line, Man United were playing free-flowing football because the pressure's not there. And Manchester United, we speak about the players a lot, mentally weak. The mentality is not there. Man United need a mentality shift. They need a cultural shift. And that can be pushed by the manager, but the manager can only push it so much if it's not supported by the people that make those decisions and implement those opportunities for change. I'm talking about INEOS. I'm talking about Omar Barada. I'm talking about Wilcox. I'm talking about Vivell. I'm talking about the people in charge of recruitment and effectively recruiting players for this team. Whether you plan to back Ruben Amorim, if he is staying, which it seems that he has confirmed that he will be here at Manchester United next season, if he is staying, then you give him all the ingredients for him to make the meal that you need, that you want. You can't give him a player that doesn't suit what he requires. You can't give him, someone who lacks physicality, someone that's not able to receive the ball under pressure. You can't give him a striker that can't put the ball in the back of the net. You cannot do that. And that's why I think there is a lot of emphasis for me on INEOS and the ownership. 20 years of the Glazers running Manchester United into the ground. INEOS have come in and I think made some questionable decisions across the board of their time here at Manchester United. But this summer is probably the biggest summer for Manchester United. You look at, just further up north in Liverpool. Liverpool have just lifted the Premier League title and they're on their way to potentially securing 3 new signings before the month is even ended. They haven't even finished their celebrations and they're already bringing in 3 players. I know that money is a big influence in that, and winning the Premier League has helped them to be able to do that. But effectively, they are bringing in more players to help their manager. So Manchester United need to do the same. Man City are doing it. Arsenal are doing it. When the window opens, I anticipate Newcastle will do it. I anticipate Brighton and Brentford and Fulham will do it. The teams that are newly promoted, they will do it. So there's no reason for me why Manchester United should not do it in the summer transfer window to the best of their abilities. Finishing in 15th place, losing out on Europe altogether, it causes financial strains for Manchester United. So there will be probably a lot of outgoings, and maybe outgoings that fans might not agree on. But I think it's for the greater good, unfortunately. I know some people might not agree, but I feel like some of the potential outgoings that we'll see in the summer might be for the greater good. And Ruben Amorim said it, when he first came in, and he said it multiple times throughout the season. He might not be the guy to take Man United to the top, to the pinnacle of English and European football. But if he's the manager that can help them get closer, and there's another manager that comes in after that, then so be it. He only signed a 2.5-year deal. So for me, I don't think INEOS expect him to be that title contending manager immediately, but he is the manager, I think, to bridge that gap. And whether he's able to, sign an extension in the long run, that's a conversation for then. I think the next 6 months for Manchester United is big, not just for the players, but also for INEOS and Ruben Amorim to prove himself. Because this 6 months for me that he's been at Manchester United, I wouldn't say it's a clean slate, because he came into a situation at Manchester United that was relatively toxic. It was a toxic environment. It's been a toxic environment. Player power has had so much influence at Manchester United for so long. And it seemed like, Erik ten Hag was slightly able to stamp that out, and Ruben Amorim is fully trying to stamp that out. And like I said, we will see that probably with the outgoings in the summer. I know a lot of people have struggled to buy into what Ruben Amorim is selling, and to be honest, I don't blame them, because the results speak for themselves. The position that Manchester United have ended in speaks for itself. The fact that Manchester United have struggled to win double-digit games in the Premier League under Ruben Amorim, the fact that Manchester United haven't won back-to-back Premier League games, the fact that Manchester United have struggled to keep clean sheets regularly or consistently throughout the Premier League under Ruben Amorim. All of these factors, for me, contribute why a lot of people have struggled to buy into Ruben Amorim and this project that he's selling us. But at the end of the day, today, after the Villa game, his speech, I think, kind of captured the essence of probably what every fan wants to hear. But for me, it's not about what you say. It's always about what you do and the actions that you take. And probably this is the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones, that will kind of help see the trajectory of how Manchester United's summer transfer window turns out. Reportedly, just before the game, the day before the game against Villa, David Ornstein reporting that Ruben Amorim has told Alejandro Garnacho to find a new club. And I am a bit confused about the outrage amongst some parts of the fan base regarding this decision, because for so long we've talked about the need for a culture shift. For so long we've talked about the need for player power to finally come to an end. And there's other players that have been around, and we're going to talk about them as well. But there's other players that have been around for so long that have been able to get away with seeing many managers leave the door, and they still manage to find their seat in the locker room. But I think this ends here, and it starts, unfortunately, not with Garnacho. I actually think it started with Marcus Rashford. Garnacho is not new to disciplinaries at Manchester United. If you remember, under Eric Ten Hag, before he even became a first-team player, his first pre-season tour, he was disciplined by Eric Ten Hag. And then again, when the season started, he was dropped by Eric Ten Hag to make an example out of him and his situation. It's nothing new for me. This happens to players. And for players, the most important thing, I think, is how you address that situation. You know, Ruben Amorim has had an issue with Alejandro Garnacho. This is not the first time, but I think it's the first time that it's played out in a public setting. You know, if you remember back at the Manchester derby in December, both him and Marcus Rashford were dropped from that. They were left out of the matchday squad. And then a couple of weeks later, consistently, Garnacho was left on the bench, and we saw him coming off the bench before he eventually got a start under Ruben Amorim. This is not the first time Garnacho has had disciplinary issues, like I said, at Manchester United. And I think it's sad, because it's a young player with heaps of potential, heaps of ability. You know, you see this season, the big chances that he missed just getting in those positions. Some attacking players for Manchester United can't even do that. So the fact that he finds himself in good threatening attacking positions and he's not able to put it away, that is one thing that Manchester United struggled with and Garnacho struggled with this season. But the way everything for me has unfolded after the Europa League final loss, that is not a time for division, in my opinion. Ruben Amorim, for me, didn't make a scapegoat of Garnacho in the press conference, you know, in reference to the question that was asked about why Mount started over Garnacho. I think he was just referencing, look, he missed a chance. Mount came on and scored against Bilbao. It's fine margins, and that's why he started Mount over Garnacho. Did I agree? No, I didn't. In hindsight, was that the right decision? No, it wasn't. But we're here now. And what's the best thing to do? The best thing to do is have your conversations, I think, behind closed doors, because you now allow other clubs to know that there's a problem at home. And when it comes to maybe Man United looking to sell him and get a reasonable fee for him, people will identify this issue and be like, you know what, you guys want him out, so we can take 10 million off that asking price. I think what Garnacho said after the game was ridiculous. You can think those stuff, I think, and there's no problem with thinking that. You know, he's a person at the end of the day. He's a human. He has feelings. He's got emotions. There's no problem with that. But the fact that the final whistle hadn't even blown and your brother is on social media, you know, making blasphemous statements about, you know, the manager, or indirect comments about the manager and the team, you know, Man United losing to Newcastle 4-1, but you think that the right thing to do is post something on social media of your goal. It was a 4-1 loss. There's nothing to celebrate. There's a lot of, for me, individualism at Manchester United with some players. And we talk about, like I said, the cultural shift. Ruben Amorim has spoken about the change in culture, not just on the pitch, but behind closed doors. And this is just another example of the cultural issues at Manchester United, the weak mentality, the individualism, the entitlement that a lot of players have. There is no secret here. Garnacho is a good player and he has a potential to become a great player, but he's not there yet. So you can't behave in that manner. And even if you behave in that manner, you need to let your accolades do the talking. Cristiano Ronaldo was kicked out of Manchester United, and he's one of the greatest players of Manchester United and football as a whole. Did I agree with Cristiano Ronaldo's situation at the time? Not really. But at the end of the day, players cannot undermine managers. And for so long, we've spoken about how Man United have a revolving door when it comes to managers of coming in and leaving, and the players still remain. Garnacho's situation is unfortunate. Ruben Amorim, I think, made the right decision and the right call to drop him from the squad today. He was present at Old Trafford, him and Onanas, who was also dropped, who we're going to talk about. But look at players that were left out of the final. Did they do interviews after the game? Kobbie Mainoo coming on in the 89th minute. He could have easily gone to media. He could have easily gone to the English media and said, you know what, I don't know why I'm being left out, coming on for 1 minute. He could have refused to come on like we've seen players do in the past. He could have done that. You have to be an example of a player publicly. If this unraveled behind closed doors, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if Alejandro Garnacho made his feelings known to Ruben Amorim behind closed doors, but to publicly undermine the manager, and I think to Man United are already down. The players are down. To kick a team when they're already down just shows to me that there's individualism in there with Alejandro Garnacho, and it is the right decision. Summer is going to be very interesting. The next couple of weeks are going to be interesting. Ruben Amorim has confirmed that he will travel to with the squad for their Far East Asia tour because, fans across the world have a right to see Manchester United and they deserve it. And we're going to see what happens with Alejandro Garnacho. But I think it's the end of Alejandro Garnacho's time at Manchester United. And I do think there will be suitors for him. He's traditionally more of a proper wide player. So teams that are looking for a left winger or a right winger potentially could look to be interested in him. Man United reportedly wants 60 million for him. And like I said, because this is all unraveled in public, similar to Sancho and Rashford's situation, teams could actually take advantage of this. Now, another situation that has unraveled at Manchester United is Andre Onanas' situation. And it's maybe not as toxic and as negative for me as Garnacho's in terms of the fact that it's played out in the public eye. But some things have played out in the public eye, and it's the poor performances from Onana, the mistakes, the how prone he is to mistakes, number one, number two, and how uneasy everybody feels, whether it's the fans, whether it's the players, whenever a shot goes, whenever there's, Onana coming out to claim a cross, whenever it's a set piece, there is a lot of unease that oozes through the team. I've been at Old Trafford multiple times this season, and Onana is not the most confident goalkeeper for me as a fan to have. 2 seasons at Manchester United. I don't really think he's proven anything in those 2 seasons. He was brought in to play as a goalkeeper who's able and very good with the ball at his feet. Manchester United have not really reaped the benefits of that. Let's be honest. We have not reaped the benefits of that. Instead, we've got a goalkeeper for me who doesn't read the game well. His positioning is poor. His shot stopping ability is poor. The fact that he can get beat at his near post, at his far post, in the middle. It doesn't matter where people are shooting. It's not a confidence feeling that I'm feeling when I watch Manchester United. And I feel unfortunate for him because it's been multiple times that he's now been dropped under Ruben Amorim. Not only dropped, but completely left out of the matchday squad. And I think the first time he was dropped after that blunder against Lyon, that was more maybe to, just give him a little confidence boost and to take his mind off stuff. But to drop him on the final day and leave him out of the matchday squad, I think sort of confirms that Manchester United will be going down the avenue of finding a new goalkeeper. It is an important position to fill. If there is an error-prone goalkeeper in between the sticks for you, it doesn't matter how many goals you score on the other end, you are still conceding in your end. And for me, Manchester United cannot move forward with that. We know we have the striker issues. We know that we have the physicality issues in the midfield. But I think goalkeeper is as big as a problem as the goal scoring situation. Now, something that I don't really see as a huge problem looking at the end of it is Bruno Fernandes. Al Hilal are interested, and I think actually this Aston Villa game might have put some things into perspective for us in terms of where his future is, because Manchester United get a penalty. Ruben Amorim signals to Johnny Evans, it's either him or Christian Eriksen to take it. Bruno Fernandes agrees. He gives the penalty to Christian Eriksen. If Bruno Fernandes was leaving Manchester United, he would have took that penalty. Now, he did a lap of honour with the whole squad, but then he slowly parted away from them with his kids and did a lap of honour around the stadium just to thank the fans. I don't know where Bruno Fernandes' future lies. I will be totally honest. Al Hilal reportedly want a decision by the end of this week. They've offered him near enough to life-changing money. Not even near enough. It is life-changing money. It's over 60-something million a year. Manchester United probably value him at a lot. Ruben Amorim has publicly come out this weekend to say, we are changing the Manchester United. We are changing the culture. We are changing the environment. And if Bruno Fernandes can see that, he will want to stay. But he's also probably a player that is looking at the final years of his prime time. I'm thinking, okay, I need to win something. Is Saudi Arabia the answer to go as a destination in terms of if you want to win something at top flight football, top European flight football? I don't think so. But Bruno Fernandes for me has been a he's been a shining light in what has been a very dim season. He didn't have the best of seasons in terms of consistently, because he picked it up around January times. But to end the season with 20 assists and 19 goals in all competitions, Manchester United's highest goal scorer in the league, Manchester United's highest tally assist man for the season, player of the season, etc., etc. A lot of individual accolades that he's managed to pick up, but the proof is in the pudding. You can pick up all the individual awards, but when Man United are horrible across every possible aspect, just because you are the bright spot in a horrible team, it doesn't really mean a lot, if I'm being honest. I felt the same about Diogo Dalot last season when he was Man United's best player in terms of improvement and the level that he was playing at. But it was a bad season for Manchester United that was capped off with a FA Cup final win. But I still felt like, again, just because you are the better player in what has been a bad squad, it doesn't always necessarily mean anything. Now, I know Ruben Amorim probably wants Bruno Fernandes to stay. I know maybe in the back end of Manchester United, the boardroom, they probably want him to stay. They gave him a bumper contract last season during the summer transfer window because he was reportedly looking at potential options to leave. But Man United are in a rebuild. Manchester United now are in a rebuild. When you remember what happened with Liverpool and Coutinho, they took the money that helped fund their rebuild that led them to becoming back on the top flight of English football. Is this Manchester United's Coutinho moment? Is this the moment where you have to put pride and emotion and relationships aside and think what is the better decision for the club? Manchester United find themselves in a financial mishaps. They find themselves in many financial mishaps. They have over 100 million to pay in overdue transfer fees for previous summer windows. They have the lucky thing for Manchester United is probably a decrease in the wage book because Manchester United are not in Europe this season. But they need money. They can maybe get money from selling Rashford and selling Sancho and maybe selling Garnacho, maybe selling Onana. But selling Bruno Fernandes would help fund that rebuild. Now, my only concern that I have about selling Bruno Fernandes is Man United's recruitment ability to effectively replace him. Not only effectively replace him, but replace him with the pieces of the puzzle that Manchester United need. Like I said, in midfield, Man United have lacked a lot, but they've lacked a lot of physicality. You come up against Wolves, Brentford, Brighton, the mid-table teams, and Man United are getting bullied. You come up against the top flight teams, Man United are getting bullied. You come against the lower flight teams, Man United are getting bullied in the midfield all the time. So my only worry is that Man United might sell Bruno Fernandes and not effectively replace him. And that could happen. That could really happen. I think a lot of Bruno Fernandes's future is dependent maybe on where he sees himself and whether that money that Al Hilal are offering him reportedly is enough for him to be like, you know what, this might be the best time for me to go. I think that is one way to look at it. And I think another way to look at it is probably based on how much Manchester United are able to sell their other outgoing players for. If Man United can raise effectively near enough to 150 in sales from Jadon Sancho, from Marcus Rashford, from Anthony, from Garnacho, from Onana, maybe from Maguire if they look to move him on. If they're able to raise funds, then they might not feel like it's a necessity to sell Bruno Fernandes. However, it might get to a point where they realize they're not getting a lot of money for those players, and why would they? A lot of them have been very, very underwhelming, except for Anthony in terms of loan spells. The other two have been very, very underwhelming. So that might be two kind of factors that play into the decision of Manchester United selling Bruno Fernandes. And another thing I think that will play into it is the future of Rasmus Hojlund. I made my decision on Rasmus Hojlund back in like December. I think it's very sad, and I say this all the time when I watch Rasmus Hojlund. I really feel like he skipped a step in his development. Going from Atalanta to Manchester United, I think there should have been another team in between there. Now, reportedly, Inter Milan are interested, reportedly Juventus are interested, and Manchester United are evidently going to go into the market to sign a striker. Now, what striker are they going to sign? Well, there's a lot of strikers on the market, but Man United have nothing to offer right now except for a project and a name. They don't have European football to offer. They have a project to offer under Ruben Amorim, and they have the name of Manchester United, which might carry some weight, but probably doesn't carry as much weight as it did maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now, Cunha and Mbeumo, we're going to talk about that. But in terms of out-and-out nines, I watched Manchester United, throughout the season. And it's very clear sometimes it's not even the chance creations. It's just putting the ball in the back of the net. Today against Aston Villa, Hojlunds managed to put the ball in the back of the net, but it was offside. And there's far too many times that I watch Rasmus Hojlund, and the simple things that I feel like a number 9 should do outside of scoring goals, he doesn't even do that. So he doesn't really have much influence on the game. And sometimes it has felt like throughout the season and even last season that Manchester United were playing one man down because, their striker just gets nullified by the opponent. You look at the strikers on the market, there's Gyökeres, there's Osimhen, there's Delap, a player that Manchester United has been linked to. There's Sesko, Vlahovic will probably be available. Jonathan David looks like he's probably heading to Napoli on a free. Manchester United need to look at the strikers available and someone that will immediately give you 20 goals in all competitions at the minimum. That should be the minimum that they look for. Now, I think it will also depend on who they sign to play behind the striker. But I think Rasmus Hojlund's time at Manchester United has come to an end. And am I mad about it? Yes, I am. Given the fact of how much Man United paid for him, they overpaid. And it's not a secret that United have always been overpaying. And I hope the days of overpaying for players have come to an end. Rasmus Hojlund, for me, he has potential, but there's no potential there to work with right now when you have consistently dropped blunders after blunders of performance throughout an entire campaign. I can't remember the last time I seen Rasmus Hojlund have 3 good games in a row. Maybe I might have to go all the way back to his first season in the Champions League when we probably saw the best of him. Now, going into the summer transfer market for Manchester United, it's important that they address so much stuff. But again, like I said, the goalkeeper situation is dire, but that frontline situation is the biggest issue that Manchester United have to address. And I don't even think it's worthy of signing one player. I think Man United should need to sign 3 if the finances allow it. I've just seen Mbeumo score 20 goals in the Premier League. He's in the top 5 goal scorers in the league. His partner has 19. Manchester United could really only wish that one player scores 19 goals, let alone 20. I mean, combine Man United's 2 top goal scorers in the Premier League, they still don't outscore Wissa or Mbeumo. 39 goals together as a duo. If any Man United partnership could do that, that would be a huge weight off Manchester United in terms of being clinical, being competitive, whether it's in the Premier League, in the FA Cup, because next season Man United are really only in domestic cups. That's it. I don't expect Man United to go on and win the Premier League next season at all. I don't even know what my expectations are. I think I can only tell you guys after the transfer window. But Manchester United, for me, should be looking at signing Mbeumo and Cunha. I think today and many other games, Amad Diallo has shown us that he thrives at right wing back in this particular system. I've always been against the idea of Amad in the right 10, mainly because he's naturally a wide player and he holds that width, and then the right wing back is not coming central. Today in particular, before Mazraoui went off, we saw exactly what I have tried to allude to a lot of times. Amad holding the width and the right wing back coming in central and occupying the space that Amad vacates. Next season, if Manchester United don't sign a right wing back, I honestly won't be surprised to see Amad play at right wing back, given the fact that he thrives in that position going forward. He's good at progressing the ball. He's good at 1-2 play. He's quite strong. He's very technical. He can get the attack going. The only thing I would say is that he would have to have a right-sided centre back that takes the defensive toll off him. He will have to have a midfielder that takes the defensive toll off him. Is there a guarantee that could happen? I'm not too sure. But for me, Manchester United should be all over doing a double swoop for Cunha and Mbeumo. Mbeumo only has 1 year left on his contract. 20 goals in a Brentford side, that means he's comfortable in leading a line. He's comfortable in contributing to it. He's comfortable in linking up, playing, getting shots off, getting in threatening positions. Again, Cunha similar as well. I know we might have a here we go in the coming week or so for Cunha. 60 million plus add-ons. Sorry, it's not 60 million plus add-ons. It's a release clause, but it's slightly more than the release clause because Manchester United have offered to pay more in the hopes that they can pay in installments because of, again, the financial situation. With Mbeumo, I look at it similar to the Ivan Toney situation last summer. Brentford were not making it easy for any Premier League team, which led to Ivan Toney joining Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia for about 40 million euros. Brentford were never going to sell Ivan Toney to Manchester United or any other Premier League team for 40 million euros, but they were happy to sell him to a Saudi team. Now, I'm not saying Mbeumo is going to go to Saudi. I'm just saying that that might happen again, where they're not willing to sell to a Premier League team for a reasonable fee, but they also can't afford to potentially lose him on a free agency next summer. I think he might have an option to pick up a 12-month option, but the point still stands. They can't afford for Mbeumo to leave. Man United have to do a double swoop. These two together would immediately raise the ceiling in Manchester United's front line, 100%. And on top of that, I think Manchester United have to go out and sign a striker. Now, one player that I have been happy to see in the performances that we've seen from him so far this season, and it hasn't really been a lot, is Aiden Heaven. I feel like, if anything, Manchester United are comfortable in two particular positions, and that's probably the wide-sided centre-backs in Aiden Heaven and Leny Yoro. I think they could both be possibly Manchester United starters on the wide spaces next season. Leny Yoro has shown that he can play right and left, and Aiden Heaven has shown he can play on the left. Now, a lot of it is down to fitness in particular, if they're able to stay fit, but this season has shown no positives really to take away. I'm clutching at straws when I'm talking about Man United's young players. Now, another player that I think, where is his future lying for Manchester United? And, we saw him come on today and make a cameo. We saw him play 1 minute against Tottenham Hotspurs in the Europa League, and that's Kobbie Mainoo. Where is his future at Manchester United? And I feel like with Garnacho potentially on his way out, which it seems like that's the likely case, I think it could mean that Kobbie Mainoo will stay. I don't think INEOS look at anybody in Manchester United right now as unsellable. I think everybody at Manchester United has a price tag if it's the right price. I would be gutted if I saw Kobbie Mainoo leave, mainly because, like I said in past videos, he's a young talent come through Manchester United, and yes, he has that aspect of being a Carrington product, but he is a damn good player. He is a damn good player, and Ruben Amorim has to, for me, get better out of him and other young players, because when he came to Manchester United, this idea that Ruben Amorim had a track record similar to Erik ten Hag, it was reported that they both had track records of developing young talents. This needs to be the case. Kobbie Mainoo is still quite early in his career. It's only really been his second season at Manchester United, his first full season. He's had little injury problems as well, but Ruben Amorim has to get better out of him and out of the assets that he has at his disposal next season. I think the summer transfer window will be huge for Manchester United. Like I said, I don't want to sit here this time next year and talk about the fact that, Ruben Amorim didn't get the players he needed or the players that he wanted. The recruitment team are there for a purpose. Vivell has been brought in for a reason. Barada, Wilcox have all been brought in for a reason. INEOS must make better decisions in the summer transfer window and forward. I don't want to see a situation where they publicly back Ruben Amorim like they did with Erik ten Hag to sack him a few months later. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you are going to keep the manager, you need to see it out for the season and let him have the full season. Ruben Amorim said today in his speech that, 6 months ago, he didn't anticipate it would be here, but he knew the storm was coming, and he's glad that these 6 months has happened, because now they can go into the summer transfer window with a clearer mind, with 6 months experience of, Carrington and Manchester United under his belt, and do better. And that's what next season has to be. Next season has to be better. It has to be better performances, better outcomes, better results, and a better trajectory for Manchester United. Because if Man United play one game a week and other teams, other opponents are playing multiple games in the week, and Manchester United are having all this heaps of time on the training field, and we're seeing a 15th, 16th, 17th place finish, there is a crisis at Manchester United. And maybe there are hyenas in Old Trafford if that is the case next season. Like I said, guys, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. If you want to keep up with Manchester United and just football in general across the summer transfer window, I will have content dropping every day, videos, live streams, etc. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, and welcome to the community if you are new here.